MARCUM, invocation and the pledge.
Seeking social concerns among our youth where we're gracious and loving God together once again we share fellowship and mission with our fellow Rotarians. We're grateful for the great heritage of our movement where men and women gather all around the world in a common commitment to service and mission and fellowship for our good. This day we lift up in prayer those we've mentioned, Betty, but also we acknowledge that each one of us have a private portion of our own heart. We're aware of people in our path who face health challenges or unexpected difficulties. We just pray your strength and encouragement and those who are uncertain. And in the seasons of the year, we have found ourselves experiencing the hot days of summer already here in mid-May. May we hold gratitude for those in our city whose work takes them on the roofs of buildings, along the streets and freeways of our city, and those who carry and deliver all our mail and packages to our doors. In the midst of our earthly comforts and air conditioning, let's all give thanks for those who serve us in the Texas heat. We are grateful. Bless us in our meeting with our leaders who keep us going each week, and bless our speaker who brings us a new word this day. And we give you the praise and thanksgiving for this day and this club. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Thank you so much, Barbara, for that great invocation. Okay. Richard Stanford, who has happy bucks who wants to announce something that they are certainly happy about? Anyone? All right, Eric Harrison, let's go.
Headed out next Thursday to spend a week and a half somewhere I've never been before, meeting my oldest son and his fiance and some friends in Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. Congratulations. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Next up, introduction of guests. Who has a guest they'd like to introduce? Mr. Jim Thomas.
This is my son, Stone, from Longview.
I've got a couple of guests I'll introduce at the back table next to Herb Ziv. Kevin Lambert is here. He's known Scott Bennett forever. And he was a Rotarian at the Prestonwood Club for 10 years. And next to him, former Rotarian in this club, the great Kyle Levinsky. Hazed me in college, still hazing me to this day. And also at the front table, my wife is here. She actually exists. So Mark Kashar, please welcome. Any other guests? Any other guests? Okay, Eric Harrison, introduction of the Marketplace Advertiser.
Good afternoon, Rotarians. Our Marketplace spotlight today is on our own Kathy Wall. I didn't see Kathy here today.
She's out of town.
Usually she's hard to miss, so I'm assuming she's not here, but Kathy is a local State Farm agent, proudly serving Highland Park, University Park, and the surrounding Dallas area. In her 31 years as a State Farm agent, Kathy has built an insurance agency team of 18 dedicated insurance professionals. Her team has more than 150 years of combined insurance experience to help customers with service and claims. Kathy and her team offer a range of insurance and financial services, including auto, home, life, health, bank, annuities, and even pet insurance. Okay, I need some of that. I've got a boy at home that needs some help. All right. As a small business owner herself, Kathy and her team work with many small business owners with needs for their business. We believe in the power of relationships, so give her a call to discuss the safety of your future. You are our priority. So call Kathy Wall on Lover's Lane. She cannot wait to serve you. Please thank Kathy for her support of the Hub and our club.
Thank you, Eric. Next up with the announcement of the Legacy of Leadership Alumni Social, Richard Stanford.
Pam told you about it last week, and Happy's been sending emails, so everybody should know June 2nd at MIRIAM COCINA. Early in the evening, you have an email about that. You sign up online. It's the cost of MIRIAM COCINA is near the CLYDE Park there. There is good parking that's already been sent out, and you know we're subsidizing privately, just public. Subsidizing a little bit of it. It gets really expensive to have fancy hors d'oeuvres and alcohol for our meetings. But so if you're taking the low 30s, you get a lot more than that. And so set out June 2nd. We had a wonderful thing that Herb and Siobhan did at Flying Fish this week, a breakfast, just to get together. Eric Heitkamp's taking us out to the ball game at the Rough Riders on the 24th, and this will follow up right after Memorial Day on June 2nd. So sign up online. You got it, but Happy will send out another one too.
All right, thank you, Richard. Next up, Mr. Daniel Voigt. We've got some great membership news. Yeah, come on up, you're a little surprised. Daniel Voigt is a relatively new member and has done a lot of the things that we ask new members to do to get engaged in the club. And so that's hard to do with young kids at home. He's also helped the club set up an account to earn some more interest as well. So thank you for doing that. So I am going to trade out a brand new badge for you, and I'll take their old one. So congratulations, Daniel Voigt. Okay, Clement George. Special announcement. Looking forward to this one. Come on up.
How's everybody doing? So a few years ago, before my time here, the Rotary Club established the CC Collie ROTC Service Above Self Scholarship Award. And a few of us, including the Tunnel, the Wagner, Fred Brown, and I went over to Hillcrest High School the other day to meet with and interview a few applicants for this scholarship. And I'll remind you what this scholarship is. This is a $3,000 scholarship to be awarded to a member of Hillcrest High School Junior ROTC in honor of the 100th birthday of C.C. Collie Jr., who has lived his life to the ideas of the Rotary motto, service above self. C.C. is a true naval hero and one of the few surviving witnesses to witness the end of World War II. On September 2nd, 1945, the Japanese delegation boarded the USS Missouri and formally surrendered. Lieutenant Collie was there and remembers it vividly. A longtime member of the Park City Rotary Club, Lieutenant Collie earned 7 battle scars during his service in the Pacific, participated in major battles in Guam, Okinawa, Iwo Jima, and Saipan. Along with the crew of the USS Blue, he captured a Japanese sub, I-400, and survived 3 typhoons. To be eligible for we present this scholarship in his honor. To be eligible for this award, an applicant must be a member of the senior class, Hillcrest High School, with a minimum 2.5 GPA average on a 4 scale. Be a member of the JROTC unit. Be accepted to an accredited college or university, and have a financial need, and not be related to Anyway, and I will tell you the applicant that we chose is Lily Hernandez, who's joined us here at the front table with her So I will tell you, Lily stood up above all the others. She not only takes a full course load at Hillcrest and serves as the battalion commander of what, 100 or 101 JROTC schools. She works a full-time job. How many hours a week do you work? 40 to 45 hours at Chili's right after she finishes high school. Like, finishes class and she goes to work and doesn't get off till maybe 12 or 1 in the morning. Is that right? That's dedication. That's hard work. That's, saving money for her future. And we couldn't be more impressed with her. So I'm happy to say congratulations. She's headed to Norwich University in Vermont, and will be a member of the ROTC program there. And we couldn't be more proud. I'm going to give you a chance to say a few words. Congratulations. You're here.
First off, I just want to say thank you to the Rotary Club for giving me this opportunity and this scholarship, which really means a lot to me, because it's not just about the money, but the belief they show on me and my education. And I promise to carry that and give out to my community and to myself. So, thank you.
Congratulations, that's great. Next up, Pat Martin with an introduction of an exciting new member. Come on, QUITA.
So for those of you that were here last week, I mentioned it last week, a little sneak preview. But as you know, William Taylor, who was the second person in our small corporation membership, he moved to San Antonio some time ago. He sort of remained involved a little bit in Rotary activities, particularly attending like the 4th of July meetings virtually, because he has that level of knowledge. And maybe I'm going to propose that he become an honorary member, so he could still put him to work on 4th of July stuff. But today I want to recognize a new member, QUITA Johnson. She is one of my colleagues at People Newspapers. She's an awesome salesperson and a great human being. And she has already volunteered to do the food service at Ronald McDonald House on Monday. So she's jumping right in with 2 feet. So welcome her, and we're excited to have her as part of our team and the club.
Congratulations, QUITA. In that folder, in that folder is a list of things to do as a new member to get engaged in the club, and once you complete all those, we'll be switching out your badge for one that Daniel just got as well, so looking forward to it. Congratulations. Okay, a couple other announcements before our drawing. Next Friday, there is no meeting for Memorial Day weekend. And Saturday, May 24th, reach out to Eric Heitkamp if you have interest in the Rough Rider baseball game. It's Rotary night at Rough Rider Ballpark. So the club that buys the most tickets, get our president to throw out the first pitch. So let's get Nolan out there. I'd love to see Nolan throw out the first pitch. So let's make that happen. And now the raffle. So with our raffle, we raise money for our own foundation. And a perfect example of what we do with our foundation is we give grants out to local area nonprofits and the CC College Scholarship. So Scott Bennett is going to pick the winning ticket of the raffle, and the winner, if you do have that ticket and you are able to draw the ace of spades, will get half of the pot, which is now $2,294. Okay, the last four, 1812. Wow. Mr. Sleeper. Come on, Bill Sleeper. There's about 20 to 25 cards left, and I think Bill can make it happen. Nice try. Thank you so much. The raffle moves into the next week, so be here to try to win the raffle. Okay. So now, super excited to get to introduce our speaker today, because I'm the chair of the day. And with everything going on in the world, it's great to have a speaker with a positive message. So I've known Scott for a long time. We were at UT together. We reconnected back in Dallas when Scott had started a business called Full Circle Advisors in the estate planning space, marketing to financial advisors. Next, I connected with Scott over an app he started called Scratch, which was an app that would connect teens to odd jobs to earn some extra money or scratch. Scott's a lifelong resident of Dallas. He's a blessed recipient of a life-saving heart transplant in the spring of 2023. As a professional, he has had a successful career working in a variety of organizations of enterprise sales leadership and as an entrepreneur as a co-founder of Scratch. And he's currently the founder of his own advocacy and coaching platform, Heart of It Strategies, and as a commercial insurance advisor in Marsh McLennan Agencies. Let's go, Holly. Scott also serves as a strategic advisor to multiple early-stage companies, including High Five, Trustworthy, Connected Face Strategies, and Kid Gigs. Scott is often referred to as a super connector, always hyper-focused on the importance of building deep, trusted relationships. He also knew our speaker last week, Chris Phelps. Outside of his professional pursuits, Scott enjoys spending time with his wife and two daughters. He loves to play golf, yoga, and enjoys biking, and he's a big fan of live music and seeing as many movies as possible. He dedicates time to various philanthropic organizations. He's a big brother. He's a hero for Genesis Women's Shelter, involved with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society and Southwest Transplant Alliance. Sounds like he'd be a great Rotarian, right, Holly? Let's get him in here. He also serves on the advisory board of the Texas Cowboys and Dallas Israel Bonds, and with everything Scott has experienced, he has a fascinating story to share and an inspiring perspective on life. He lives a very simple mantra of count every day, and I'm glad I get to introduce Scott Bennett. So please welcome Scott Bennett up here.
the typical guy's trip at a Texas lake with 8 of his buddies. But for Scott, what started as a weekend escape with friends would soon become a fight for his life.
We're at a guy's weekend, about 8 of us. And at one point in the trip, I looked at Scott and we locked eyes, and I knew something was wrong, and his ICD went off at that moment. And he fell backwards on his back. At that point, everybody on the trip can't do his name.
Scott's sudden event was the result of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, a condition he shares with several of his family members. This condition causes parts of the heart muscle to thicken, which over time leads to serious complications. In Scott's case, it caused the heart to struggle with pumping blood and disrupted the normal electrical rhythms, putting him at severe risk for heart failure.
And ultimately had an event where his heart hit into a rhythm called VTAP. We basically have sustained electrical impulses from lower chambers and not convert that rhythm back into a normal rhythm. That is not compatible with blood at some point. So he was ultimately transferred to UC Southwestern, where they were stabilized and getting out of that rhythm. The night that I was there, that was, I would say, a fairly, even as a physician, a fairly alarming event.
When they started to reduce the sedation, and his defibrillator kept going off, she came and sat next to me and said that the only next option is a transplant. I was sitting on this chair that was on the lower side, and I fell off the chair.
And in the dining room, I was like, okay, and she called me, okay, I'm looking after your sister, just like, go to some of our classrooms. And I'm like outside of my door, just like standing up and talking, and then she starts crying, so we have to come home. Dad is a heart transplant.
Once Scott's doctors made the decision, the next step wasn't easy. The process to get approved was long and complex. It starts with coordination, followed by endless tests, evaluations, and interviews.
Once I gave the go-ahead to start the coordination process, they started immediately, and it's testing, testing. I mean, vials of blood, every test you could imagine under the sun.
Days turned into a blur of procedures and paperwork, all leading up to one moment, getting Scott officially placed on the transplant list. But now, the waiting begins. Scott is intubated, and it can take anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks. The uncertainty is overwhelming. But then the next day, they get a call.
She pulled down her mask and she said, I wanted to tell you that we have a heart, a good heart. So I almost dropped to the floor again.
The very next morning, the transplant began, and after 5 hours of surgery,
the doctor came out and said, it's over, and he's in recovery. Obviously, a ton of relief. I'm not sure it's hitting me.
I had made it through the surgery. After spending 40 days in the hospital, he still faced a 6-month recovery. Every day was a step forward on a long road of healing, patience, and determination.
Scott was able to really go through that very well. In fact, that's how we want every patient to go through it, where they get out of the gates, they get on their medications, and really we get them back to their life. And Scott's been a model patient there. He's really followed the plan, whether he wanted to or not. And it's been great to see because he's certainly achieved the health that we want for all of our patients post-transplant.
The new Scott has got a lot more spunk. And I think this is really part of his muscles that he's here today and able to share his story with all of us, as well as just be on earth and very good about that.
I know that's what was driving Scott's, is that realization that he has a family is online. I think he's taking an approach to have that conversation based on his experiences. The good, the bad, the ugly. You don't have to have a heart transplant to be able to have a feeling about legacy. He was always going to leave a legacy. He didn't believe it himself.
So Scott wanted this to be more of an informal conversation with some questions and answers. And if anyone has any questions in the meantime, feel free to raise your hand and ask. So he's open to it. So first, what did you know about organ transplantation before you had your own experience?
Well, first of all, before we answer the question, thank you guys very much. I want to say a special thank you to Jennifer. If I'm here, Mark's wife is showing up, it must be good. And to my friends, Kevin and Kyle, really appreciate you coming today, and Holly, who was my colleague at Marshall McLennan, and my new friends. So, and congratulations to you on your scholarship. Wonderful. I'm glad I got to be able to see it. It's very profound to think about 749 days ago, because I do count every one of them, that I may not be in this room, I may not be sitting in front of each of you. And to think that 25 years earlier, my dad also had a heart transplant, which you will never hear, it's so rare. 1 out of every 10 transplants in the United States of America is a heart. In the year that I received my transplant, 4,545 hearts. When you think about 330 million people, not that everybody needs a heart, but there are so many waiting in line, and the line never gets shorter. But I knew about organ transplantation because it was my dad's story, and it was never going to be my story. I was advocating at that time for Southwest Transplant Alliance on the news. When it comes into your life, whether it's a kidney or liver, I know somebody earlier said my husband had a kidney and it's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal. You get prolonged life, and we know you make that decision often when you're at the worst place in the world, which is the DMV. And it's sort of profound to think about that. So that's kind of what I knew and never thought it was going to be me. And on April 28th of 2023, it's now become my story.
Well, we all have things we have to do, that we get up every day and we say, oh, I've got to do this. And if you follow Scott on social media, you see his notes where he says, I get to go out and do all of these things. I get to have this next day, no matter what it is. So maybe talk about your perspective 2 years later about everything that you've experienced.
Well, for me, and one of the reasons I like speaking to groups is I think we all go through life, we have moments. I think people are taking trips. I heard some of the anniversary. In a very basic day, if you don't have a birthday, an anniversary, a promotion at work, a big meeting, you might just go through the motions of a day and not finding perfect in the very small moments. And we've heard it. I've heard it. I heard it before this was my story. But what I didn't understand personally was this concept of, when I sit in traffic, I get to be in traffic. Or wake up for another Thanksgiving, I get to do that. Instead of I have to, or I need to, or I want to. And that, when you start to look at life that way, everything changes. And I think that just naturally happened. I didn't anticipate, I didn't need a mantra or something. It just started to become a talk track for me. And I kept hearing myself repeating it, Mark, over and over. And others would latch onto it. And I felt like that's a message, to your point, in this time, in this space, I get to do this. I'm here because my donor, Cody Richardson, and I say his name every day, multiple times a day, and I will for the rest of my life, because he can't be here. So I'm trying to serve his heart with my heart, as my heart.
So you were in a coma for 2 weeks. What was it like when you found out that you woke up and found out that you received a heart?
Yeah, and as Mark mentioned, if you have questions, I want this to be a conversation, so if it's burning, I want you to ask. That's one of the reasons I prefer this format. But I'm often asked, what you saw from the video, I was at a guys' weekend in April of 2023 on a Friday, day like today, playing cornhole and drinking whiskey and having some camaraderie with friends. But that went south very quickly. I was care flighted back to UT Southwestern from Cypress Springs. So Mount Pleasant, if anybody's ever been there, I was at Titus Regional Medical Center, so I'm grateful for them. Because this is not something that they see ever. And I was fine. I think Kevin, who's in the room, will tell you he talked to me in those days. I don't remember those days. So there was a 4-day period where I was stabilized. But earlier, about 2 or 3 weeks earlier, I was scheduled for a cardiac ablation. Maybe somebody's had one, but it wasn't imminent, so it wasn't emergent that I needed to do it, but it was scheduled, and it was scheduled for that following Wednesday. And that was the plan, was to keep me in the hospital and not send me home, even though I wanted to go home. And they were just watching me and observing. And the night before that ablation, I went into an episode. My defibrillator, which saved my life, was again firing. And they intubated and sedated me. And that 2 weeks after that, I woke up to hear, you have a new heart. My wife was at one end of the bed, and a brunette woman in a doctor's coat. And I couldn't speak because I had been sedated and intubated, so all I could do was see my eyes. And the doctor said, Scott, you have a new heart. I did not know who this person was, did not know if I was alive, did not know what was real, what wasn't. And then it was a long journey, but needless to say, shocked. still, when I say that, I process the enormity of that. So
you mentioned Cody's name, but what else did you learn about Cody?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. And Cody Richardson died, people always ask, 2 days before his 26th birthday, which is now my second birthday, April 28th. When you're a transplant patient, you have a second birthday. And so I get to my original birthday, March 30th, and then 29 days later, the 28th of April. Cody was sadly a very troubled person, never received nurturing love in his life from his birth. Twice adopted, was awarded the state of Mississippi, so there's a little Mississippi in this Texan now. But Cody had an accidental death, fell out of a vehicle. But what's remarkable about Cody is that Cody saved a lot of lives. He donated the maximum number of organs, which is 8, plus tissue, saving many lives. Because exponentially, I hope to, in some small way, impact your lives, and the lives you'll impact. And that is a blessing for Cody.
So speaking of impacting lives, how do you live differently post your transplant?
I think you probably heard from the lengthy introduction, I'm doing everything I can on an everyday basis. Probably too many things. I have a new career, which is fun. I love helping people, so being in insurance made sense because I love my relationships and I like to take care of people. But on an everyday basis, getting to be a big brother, which is something a year ago, I have a 12-year-old little brother, Tress Zapata, who I spend a lot of time with. Being obviously for my daughters, being able to watch their life experiences. See, I woke up and a few weeks later, my older daughter graduated from the University of Georgia. While I couldn't be there, I was alive to see it, to be able to see their weddings. But on an everyday basis, I just tried to do as many things as possible. And people around me are like, how do you do it? How do you keep going? And it's some of I get to, but to be honest, it's something that you might look it up and you may see something. It's survivor's euphoria. It's a drug that they can't prescribe, but I'm glad I'm taking. And just feel very blessed to do that. So just really every day is a gift, and I live that way every day. So
it seems cool.
I'm glad you asked. Legacy does mean a lot of things to a lot of people, and I didn't think very much about my legacy. And what I did think at the time, prior to my transplant, was very difficult. I was in a very, very difficult space, and I talked very openly about mental health. I was really struggling, which is part of the reason I'm here, is to sort of tell you that I, in a very Scott way, will tell you that I didn't think much about my legacy because I didn't have enough zeros in my bank account. I didn't like the title on my business card, and I didn't have a Barbie dream house in Hawaii. But I had so much to live for, so many relationships of a lifetime, so much work left to do, blessed with a tremendous family and friends, and I think, quite honestly, to me, and I challenge people when I speak, to consider your legacy actionable every day. What we do, shaking somebody's hand in this room, seeing another person, recognizing them, to be here for you, what you're going to do, is what legacy is truly about. It's about being part of a community. It's about the mark we leave today. And what they will say after is actionable, how you live towards it. So.
Rhodes, good question.
Yeah, it's funny and a great question. People, I think, even though it doesn't, I don't think you heard of my introduction, MD is not behind my name. I'm not a doctor, but when you have a traumatic cardiac experience, people sort of identify blockage. That's what we know. I mean, I think that's the great fear. But there are so many genetic abnormalities. There are so many different things. In my circumstance, the reason my dad and I both did is I had a genetic condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which in layman's terms means a big heart. Some would say I wore my previous heart out because it was so big. Others might say different, but the reality is they will try in a medical environment to do everything to work with your heart, because the likelihood of success of transplanting another heart into a body. While we do it, it's, you know, every day, every time I go to the doctor, it can be psychiatric have rejection. And the reality was there was just nothing more they could do. My heart had so many, I had electrical issues, so if you're familiar, and I'm sure some are, with atrial fibrillation, I had what's called VTAC, or ventricular tachycardia. And I was in the middle of what they call a V-storm. The bottom 4 chambers of my heart were conducting electricity, because your heart, at simplest terms, is a muscle with electricity that's forcing the beats. And so my heart was a dumpster fire of electrical behavior. Yeah, so I mentioned before my heart came from Mississippi, from Cody, right? So that's where my heart came from. And a typical transplant scenario is, it is a federally regulated experience. There is a UNOS, which is I don't know, like these acronyms, but there's a National Organ Registry that when you go to your DMV at any state in the United States, you are now federally opting in. There are criteria that qualify you to receive a heart. You have to be a good recipient, meaning you have to be a healthy person. What makes a good recipient, because you're looking at me, is in good health, not a drug abuser, that you can actually accept and live with the heart, because they're so rare to get. You have to be a blood type match, a body size match, because the heart has to fit. So it has to be, hearts and lungs have about 5 hours outside of another's body before they can be, or else they won't use them. So they're working against the clock. I mentioned my heart came from Mississippi. 5 hours between Jackson, Mississippi, Dallas, Texas, and an airplane flight. So these guys are working against a very, 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 crazy timeline. So that's a little about that. In terms of my waiting, it's kind of miraculous. There's no chance I would be here. There is a 0% chance that I'm talking to you today, except for there is. And the reason is that when they put you, they score you essentially 1 to 7, and there's subcategories. 1 is the most emergent, front of the line. 7 is you can live with the heart you have and for a lot of years. You're in failure, but not, you can be living, many people do, for a long period of time. I was originally, after the workup in the hospital, it takes several days to do that. Every specialist in the hospital, I came out as a 2, so I wasn't even at the front of the line. And the team at Southwestern decided to appeal that decision. It's a blind appeal. They don't know who you are, where you are. They revisited my case and put me up in front of the line, and I received a heart in 2 days. And that does not happen. Behind you. You've probably seen me get moved multiple times. I've done this a lot of times, and it doesn't fall short on me for 1 second. I mentioned my mental health. I was in a trouble place. And then get to attitude, I feel incredible. I mean, I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my life. My body is accepting and adopting this heart almost as if it's its own. But the gravity of the idea, having been in my life 25 years before me, saving my father for 16 more years, and now being my story, I think about it every day when I wake up, and I don't imagine that will ever change. If I'm at a game with my friend, or on the golf course, or at lunch with buddies, it doesn't fall short on me for 1 second, and I think maybe that's the drug I needed. We produce our own chemicals to be that way, but to know that is profoundly important to me and blessed. So Kyle asked, we've known each other a long time, and our families have known each other. My mom when I was in high school, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. We know more about it today. My parents were both 84. And probably my junior year of high school, roughly, there wasn't a lot of information. She was a young woman. My parents were married, but my mom was struggling, battling MS, and it was progressive. She lived till 2006, but unfortunately, the massive amounts of care. So I was a caregiver at a very early age for my mom. My dad, my parents divorced, but after 33 years of marriage, and then my dad had a heart transplant. So having to be a caregiver for both parents separately, and I have two older sisters. Actually, I'm celebrating tomorrow, or Saturday, my oldest sister's turned 60. So I'm excited that we have that. But it was a challenge and not something you sign up for. None of us do, but I feel fortunate that I learned a lot during that experience about the responsibility, and I think, you know, as challenging as that is, I think to your question of legacy, I know that they would be very proud of the way that we rallied around them and the way we've lived our lives. So.
Touched on how you feel spiritually and psychologically. How do you feel physically? What is the recovery process been like, and how do you feel today compared to prior?
So we sold our home. I lived in North Dallas. About a year ago, I moved right on the Katy Trail. So I will be out there today. I'm out there every day patrolling the trail, like I like to say. I love it. And I walk a lot. I play golf. I exercise a ton. I feel, in many respects, this is a 53-year-old cavity with a 28-year-old engine. I always like to call it my aftermarket heart. But it, you know, I feel incredible. The amount of energy, and physically, I just had my second annual checkup. I go, as you get further away from your transplant date, they begin to not watch you. So blood tests and regular checks with my doctor 3 to 4 times a year. I have a heart cath once a year and a full workover. Any cardiac tests, I have them all, about 15 to 20 vials of blood in that visit. But I like to pride myself as being patient number 1 at Southwestern, meaning the valedictorian of all transplant patients. I try to set a standard, my doctors know it. And I just know the gift I have, and I have to honor that gift by doing everything as a patient. So some of the work I do is in patient advocacy with others battling. We think our doctors do that, but the best way for best outcome with any sort of physical circumstance is to be a great patient. Tell your doctors thank you, work with them, positive mental attitude. So all those things have made this possible. I mean, yes, it's a very healthy heart, and I was a pretty healthy person, healthy enough to receive the heart, but what I'm doing after is honoring that by trying to live that way.
Patsy?
Yeah, 100%. Yes, I mean that is the reality. When you get a transplant, you take immunosuppression. So twice a day I take a medication. I take a very limited amount compared to what I came home with a grocery bag of medications. I mean, antiviral, antibiotic for a year, prophylactically. Maximum doses of steroids that you don't want to be taking. So to prepare the body for this gift. But the reality is, when you live in an immunosuppressed, compromised way, I could get an infection or bacteria or something, and my body would not be, necessarily able to fight that. So I just try to live between doctor's appointments. I can't control that, but I can control how I respond. The way I respond is proactively living, and then, knowing that I don't go and get nervous. I just try to go with the attitude that, come what may.
Jeff Sheehan, the Tom Rhodes.
Scott, appreciate your story very much, and I love the idea you get to do now versus I have to. I think that's something I know that I'll remember very much so. As far as what are you limited to do, like exercise? You run that Katy Trail, you like to walk, play golf. Are there anything you can't do now?
No, but I will tell you that I don't talk about it a lot, but 230 days after my transplant, I also had a spinal fusion. That is true. I've had a lot of people who know me and said I've had a rotator cuff, a torn patellar tendon. I'm like the bionic man, according to many. There really aren't limitations, but there are things I won't do for my back. I like to ski, although I didn't grow up doing it. My wife would go skiing. I'm not doing that. I'm not on a skateboard. I ride a bike, and actually 2 weeks ago on Sunday when the weather was beautiful, it was my first time back on my road bike. We moved down closer to the lake. I really don't want to be on the street. I just, I don't want that to be something that's in play for me. So I make conscious decisions, but generally there's no limitation. I'm not going to scuba dive. Things that are going to put immense stress, I'm not doing, but otherwise, no. Tom? Yeah, he was not in a motorcycle accident. He was in a back of a minivan. The door opened. He was a ward of the state of Mississippi, so he was a pretty troubled person and would get agitated. And I know about him. And the reason I know is because people ask, do I know the family? Cody had a man named Matt Malcolm who's become a personal friend of mine. He's a year older than me. He does a lot of incredible work in Mississippi working for the ARC, if you're familiar with the ARC. So it's been in my life 3 times. That's a little bit of a God wink for me. That I was raising money in college through the Texas Cowboys for the ARC, and now that is profoundly part of my life. But it is true, when I drive down 75 or the tollway, and I'm sure you do too, I used to say this after my dad, we would say when the motorcyclists drive and they weave in and out of traffic and cut people off, we like to say in a very snarky way, there's a donor. That's not the same. So that's what I was trying to say to you. I think, in a certain set, comorbidities become an issue, heart issues. This heart is a young heart, and they would tell you there's things they tell me I shouldn't eat, things that might get bacteria, so raw fish, rare meat, all things I love, by the way. And, alcohol, things that you would do, but generally speaking, with the transplant, I have a new heart, so it was so healthy, that's why I'm able to have it. It is like a crown jewel. I mean, for it to be transplanted means a surgeon won't transplant a heart. They wait to see the heart before they'll put it in the body. Because even though I was fit to take it, that doesn't mean, they need the best heart with the best patient for the best outcome. Yeah. Well, let me. It was 2 weeks, but nonetheless, the first part is actually true. That we could stop there. 5 hours between Jackson. You can do the distance. There is a geo for which they'll take the organ. Geography. So typically, Fort Worth, there's 56 organ procurement organizations in the United States. Southwest Transplant Alliance is here, just across 75. It is profoundly crazy to me. Like the doctors, so they send surgeons to go get the heart to harvest the organ. The surgeons lay their eyes on the organ. They go through a registry. The logistics from it to get to there, to me, the puzzle of that is, I can't tell you. So I'm spending a lot of time in my professional career at Marsh involved in that area, focused on those people because the work they do is so important and so taxing. Yeah. Yep, in South Africa. Yep. I think that's right.
Is there a way to tell us in layman's terms what improvements?
Yeah.
Because I think that first time improvements.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of inside baseball from my perspective. When my dad got his transplant in 1999, they did roughly 2,300, just a little over 2,300. And 25 years later, they just did 2,000 more. I wouldn't call that tremendous progress. But what they are doing, you saw Dr. Justin Groden in the video, he's a personal friend and was my cardiologist. He's a specialist in cardiomyopathy, but also a friend. They think within the next 10 to 12 years, I was living on a machine external to my body while they were taking the stress off my heart. People go home. My dad, you saw in that video, was on what they call a left ventricular assist device because half of his heart wasn't working. Now that device looked like a grocery cart. I mean, that's how big it was. He couldn't leave the hospital. He was at Baylor for 8 months waiting. Very different story than mine. He never left Baylor. Eventually got a heart. His took long because he's a type B blood, which is the rarest of blood, so even harder if you think about the puzzle you talked about. But today, that device that my dad was on looks like a little larger than the bigger iPhone and a little thicker. You can go home. It plugs in with the batteries are better. Its technology is better. I think they're going to move. I think if you think you see what's happening, and I think it's probably real. You think about things like AI. These machines that we can now create can work almost as good, if not better, than a heart. So that's why when you ask, to find a heart that will be safer than a machine, but it will still be a machine, so the body will have issues adopting. So I think that's kind of where we are.
Great questions. We got time for one more. Tom Bright.
I'm not gonna take the money from the raffle. Is that the? You're safe. Whoever y'all come back next week, the money will still be there. No, it's a great question. One of the reasons why I made so I have multiple things I do, but I made a conscious decision to get a commercial insurance. Although I thought about other things, my wife actually works in insurance. She's a Medicare specialist for IMA, but I watched a lot of Scooby-Doo and read the Hardy Boys, so I wanted to understand that too. Like, how does this all work? I mean, with my dad, I was a little younger, it wasn't really a question, but now as a professional and a human, I wanted to understand what, if you don't have good insurance, luckily, we have group coverage and have an incredible insurance program that I'm covered on, and because of that, there is a transplant policy in place. And the way that it works essentially is once you're on the runway to receive a transplant and they've approved you, if and when you get an organ, that transplant center, and we have 4 in this area, Medical City's a transplant center, Methodist, Baylor, and UT Southwestern. It's a big money maker for the hospitals. This heart in my body, while it's keeping me alive, is, like I said, a crown jewel. It is an economic driver for a lot of people. And I don't want to look at it that way, but it is. So there is a money that is pushed over, and that covers the cost of it, in short. But luckily for me, I had insurance. Other families that don't, it's astronomical what this would cost. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I work in benefits, right? I'm dual licensed in Holly, but I can tell you now, I challenge people. I'm not a broker. People are like, what's the difference? I'm an advisor, and so I advise people. That's the way I operate my practice and my business. I challenge people to ask questions, to understand, because there's biosimilars, there's lots of things. I think you have to be a great patient, be positive. And I think, Kyle, the answer is I didn't need to know, I didn't personally want to know, but I did want to understand. And so I sort of nerd out on that because I think we all are living in a climate where healthcare is expensive. And as consumers, the way that you start to ask questions, you can be knowledgeable. If you can be knowledgeable, you can do a lot of things with that power of knowledge. So.
Scott, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys very much.
Let's stick around for any other extra questions. And I'm
happy to stay if anybody wants to visit.
And we get to place a book in your honor at the Jack Lowe Senior Elementary School for being your honor of speaking today. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark, and thank you, everybody.
Y'all, quick reminder, dues are due. Thank you so much for those of you that have paid. Our treasurer is a lifelong retired banker, but he hasn't forgotten how to collect. So if you haven't paid, you might hear from Paul. Daniel Voigt, please lead us in the 4-way test.
I get the honor of leading the 4-way test. All right. Of the things we think, say, or do, first is the truth.
Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
I'm glad to see you.
This year, how would this work logistically from your perspective? Like building up to the 20 under 40 next year?